Everyone needs good neighbours, so they say, but that's not always the way things play out. Still, it's extremely rare for arguments with neighbours to get physical, or even worse, to result in murder. In today's episode, however, we cover the case of Masumi Hayashi, a Japanese woman who not only tried to kill her immediate neighbours, but her entire village. Masumi Hayashi lived in the Sonobe district of Wakayama, a city located in the Kansai region of Japan. She worked as an insurance saleswoman while her husband, Kenji, owned a termite extermination business. This was until an accident left him unable to work, though insurance payments meant the Hayashi family were far from struggling. Their house was the biggest in the neighborhood, with a beautiful landscaped garden. They also owned a BMW, with Masumi allegedly regularly honking its horn at everyone in the village who dared to get in her way. Masumi and her family were considered selfish and aloof by the rest of their neighbors, mainly because they refused to socialize with them. Belonging to a community is a critical part of most cultures, but in Japanese society, it is especially so. One of their former neighbors, Kazuko Kagawa, is quoted as saying, "No one knew her at all. In a village like this, that's very unusual. Even when the small children played near her house, she didn't let her kids play with them. In 3 years, she never tried to communicate with anyone, so local people didn't let her into the community." The Hayashis may have been regarded as strange and standoffish by their neighbors, but they were tolerated. This would all change one tragic day in 1998. Wakayama's Sonobe district is known for many things. One of them is its annual Matsuri, a summer village festival, which is a time for the entire community to come together and enjoy delicious food and each other's company. It was to take place on July the 25th, and the neighborhood's Women's Association was placed in charge of dividing up the job of cooking. That year's menu included odon, a hot pot with pieces of fish, meat, and bean curd. There was also takoyaki, which consisted of grilled balls of batter and chopped octopus, as well as curry rice, a relatively spicy dish popular with many Japanese. As the event began to wind down, it seemed that the festival had gone off without a hitch, but as people began to return home, it soon became clear that something was very wrong. Many started exhibiting strange symptoms, with villager Megumi Kagawa vomiting as soon as she arrived home, while one of her neighbors, Mr. Tananaka, was found by his wife lying on the sofa clutching his heart. A local doctor initially diagnosed the sick villagers as suffering with food poisoning, and soon ambulances began to ferry them to the nearby hospital. The next day, however, this diagnosis was changed to one that was even more severe: cyanide poisoning. By then, at least 70 people were confined in various alarming states. Megumi Kagawa's face had swelled up like a balloon, but she was in a much better position than her neighbor, Mr. Tananaka, who passed away while in the hospital. His death was quickly followed by 3 others: a deputy village head, a 16-year-old local girl, and a 10-year-old boy. The incident sent shockwaves across Japan, with authorities and hordes of journalists descending on the village. An investigation was quickly launched, and a week later it was found that the poison used wasn't cyanized at all, but rather powdered arsenic, traces of which were found in the pot used to cook the curry rice. This discovery stunned the locals, with Shogo Kakimoto, who worked at the welfare department of the Wakayama prefectural government, telling the media that this wasn't about hatred of particular individuals. Anyone could have eaten the curry pot. There could have been hundreds poisoned. It's so hard to believe that a human being could do something like this. Potential mass killing at random. While the official investigation lasted for 2 months, locals claimed that they already knew who was responsible for the mass poisoning. For them, it had been orchestrated by Masumi Hayashi and her husband, Kenji. Besides the family's standoffish nature, many also noted that the termite extermination business Kenji had owned meant they had access to powdered arsenic. In early October 1998, 30 detectives, driven by tips from locals and pressure from the media, entered the Hayashi family home, where they placed the couple under arrest. This was a shocking development in the case, which was still receiving extensive press coverage. Both Masumi and Kenji Hayashi were charged with fraudulent insurance claims based on exaggerations of Kenji's injuries, which many believed were their source of their massive wealth. Masumi was further charged with the murder of the 4 poison victims, as well as the attempted murders of those who had survived. The authorities claimed that in 1997, Masumi caused one of her friends to fall ill by lacing her food with the same toxin used in the curry. They also alleged that she had attempted to murder her husband using the same method so she could cash in on his life insurance policy. To back up these allegations, prosecutors claimed that minuscule traces of arsenic were found in Masumi's hair and their family home. These reportedly matched the arsenic once used in her husband's termite extermination business. It was noted that she had been involved with the preparations for the festival and that she was alone with the rice pot during a 40-minute period. During her trial, Masumi Hayashi pled innocence, citing the fact that the evidence against her was purely circumstantial. However, in 2002, she was sentenced to death by the district court, which was upheld in June 2005 by the Osaka High Court. On April 21, 2009, this was once again upheld by the Supreme Court of Japan, which rejected her final appeal. It further ruled that the prosecution had proved her culpability beyond reasonable doubt. Despite these decisions, the now 59-year-old Masumi Hayashi continues to insist that she had nothing to do with the Wakayama curry murders, as it has since come to be known. She has once again formally petitioned the court for a retrial, but the outcome of this remains to be seen. The Wakayama curry murders was a sensational case that gripped all of Japan. Unfortunately, it inspired a wave of copycat crimes across the country. It has also recently garnered renewed interest after Masumi's 32-year-old son, who adopted the pseudonym Kenji Hayashi, began speaking out to raise awareness about his mother's case and her insistence that she is innocent. In an interview with the Japan Times, he said that if she really committed those crimes that she is convicted of, it is absolutely unforgivable, and I think she should be punished accordingly. I can't say for sure my mother is a victim of wrongful conviction, but I want society to know there is at least a possibility that she is. Many have regarded Kenji Hayashi's one-man campaign as extraordinary, given that in Japan, family members of convicted criminal offenders are often stigmatized and discriminated against. The concept of guilt by association runs deep in the country, which is why families of those in prison are disinclined to advocate for them to avoid being ostracized. By adopting a pseudonym, Kenji Hayashi has managed to escape this discrimination to a certain extent. That isn't the case for the rest of his siblings, though. On June 9, 2021, media outlets in Japan reported that a 37-year-old woman had thrown herself off the Sky Gate Bridge in Kansai International Airport in Osaka. In her arms, she carried her 4-year-old daughter. Neither survived. It was soon revealed that the woman was the eldest daughter of Masumi Hayashi. However, this wasn't the only tragic event to have unfolded on that day. That afternoon, the woman's eldest daughter, 16-year-old Kokoro Tsurusaki, had also died in a local hospital, where she was taken to by emergency services after her mother reported that she had vomited blood before collapsing and falling unconscious. When doctors examined her body, they found severe bruising, including to her abdomen. This led them to determine her cause of death as shock due to external trauma. Meanwhile, the woman's husband was found squatting by the side of a road in the city's Minato area. He reportedly told the authorities that he had tried to hang himself but was unsuccessful. Media outlets claim that he is currently being questioned for allegedly abusing his daughter. As for Masumi Hayashi, she currently sits in a Japanese prison, waiting and wondering if her next few moments may be her last. In Japan, those in death row are only told when their sentence will be carried out 2 hours beforehand.